All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right, so looks like we got a couple questions in there. So we'll start here with Steve. Says, "Hi Q, can you please describe the movement and extension of the right arm, especially in the backswing, and key in on what it does not on the downswing and at impact, and follow it the rest of the way to finish for a right hand player." All right, so basically the best way that I can describe it is it's just like throwing a ball or skipping a rock across the water, right? So if I'm skipping a rock, if I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to try to skip it across the water, I'm going to have it relatively straight here, right? I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to fold it up, right? So my arm is going to kind of rotate a little bit. My shoulder is going to rotate, and my wrist is going to cock back a little bit, right? So that's that movement. And then from there, I'm going to move my elbow in front. I'm going to lead with my elbow, and then I'm going to release it out in front. So my arm's going to be straightening. My wrist is going to be straightening it out in front. That's basically the movement of the arm. Really, it's not really any more complicated than that. I think people are just really trying to overcomplicate it. It's really as simple as folding it to the top. So we're bending, or we're rotating it, and we're bending it, right? And we're bending our wrist back, and then we're undoing that out in front. That's all we're trying to do. If you're not moving your arm that way, then what's likely happening is you're putting the face in a bad position at the top. So what that basically means is the face is probably open at the top. So you're moving your arm in a way that's going to help you to close the face. Here's the difference between throwing a ball and swinging a golf club. When you throw a ball, you don't have to square the face, right? But with a golf club, you have to square the face. So you're going to move your arm in a way that's going to help you to square up the face. So if you go up to the top of the swing and that face is in an open position, right, then you're going to move your arm in a way that's going to help you to close it, right, to get it squared up. So that's really what it comes down to. So Michael in Alaska says, "Morning, I have done the 20 or the distance fix, and it did get me 15 to 20 more yards more distance. Awesome. So I am at 185 to 195 off the tee, straight as an arrow, and I wonder if it is possible to get another 15 to 20 yards. I'm sure it's possible, but generally, the first 15 to 25 yards is going to be a lot easier than the second 15 to 20 yards, right? It really just depends on what things are off. So what I'd recommend doing is I just keep going through the 20-minute distance fix. Just keep going through it, right? But you're not likely going to get another 15, 20 yards going through it again. You may get a little bit more, right? But then you just keep going through it, keep going through it. Try to improve upon the previous time that you went through it. So yes, possible to get another 15 to 20 yards. But I wouldn't expect to get it with the same amount of work. It's probably going to take a lot more work. The more, basically the further you get along it, the more it takes to get results. All right. So Nick says, "Hi Q, I have a question. How far down the grip should amateurs grip the club? I've noticed that some tour pros grip long irons well down the club, and with a couple of inches of grip showing above the lead hand. Would us mere mortals gain more control by gripping down slightly on the shaft?" Well, I mean, I think when you see that, you may see it. They're either one, it's the optical illusion that we often see on TV. So basically, it just means that they're gripping the club correctly. So if you grip the club correctly, right, it looks like I'm gripping down on the club right here, right? Because you're seeing, when you're looking from the camera, right, you're seeing this much of the grip, but that's not really what's going on, right? I'm using, if I looked at it from this angle, it doesn't look like I'm choking up on the club, does it? right? So from this angle, it does because you're seeing more of the grip. So that might be part of it. And then the other part of it might be that they may be choking up, but they're not choking up on all of their shots. Now, there are some players that choke up on all their shots. Anthony Kim was famous for doing that. And the reason why he did that is that he was not a really big guy, and the clubs that he had growing up were like adult clubs, and he choked up on them to make them fit him a little bit better, right? So if you're in that situation, you do that, or you just get fitted for clubs. I think Anthony Kim didn't get fitted for clubs initially, but then he just liked choking up on the club, so he kept doing that, right? So what are you sacrificing by choking up on the club? Well, what you're sacrificing is speed and distance. The longer the club, the more speed you can generate. So yeah, you may gain a benefit by choking up on it, by having a little bit more control of it. But that's not why tour players are doing that. Typically, you see tour players doing it. Either it's the optical illusion. You think that they're choking up, but it's really just, you're seeing it from this angle instead of this angle, where now it doesn't look like I'm choked up, right? And then the other part of it is they may be just trying to take a little bit off. So if I'm in between clubs, what I'll do is I'll take the higher club and just choke up on it a little bit. So let's say, I hit my 7-iron 180, low 180s, like 182 or something like that, and I hit an 8-iron 165. Well, if I have 175, right? Well, I can't hit an 8-iron there, and I would be a full 7-iron would be too much club. So for me, I don't like to take just a slower swing. And I'd rather just take what feels like just a full swing to me. So what I would do in that situation, I would just choke up a little bit on the club to take a little bit of yardage off of it, right? And then when I do that, it looks like I'm really choked up, right? It looks like it, but I'm really not, right? So it's just taking a little bit off. That's probably what you're seeing tour players doing. They're just taking a little bit off of the club. There could be some situations where they're trying to keep it low, right? So a way that you can keep it low is you can take a lower lofted club, right? So let's say I had a 150-yard shot, and I hit my 9-iron 150. So but that'd be like a full 9-iron. Let's say I wanted to hit it low. Well, what I could do is I could take like my 5-iron or something like that has a lot less loft. I can choke up on it to take a little bit off of it, and then take a little bit shorter of a swing to take a little bit off of it to get it to be the 150. So that's probably what you're seeing is situations like that. I don't know of any tour players other than like Anthony Kim that just choke up on all their long iron shots. There could be some out there, but generally, they're taking, if they're trying to get the full distance of the club, they're using the full length of the club. All right, so make sure I'm not skipping anybody here. All right, so John M says, I've seen images of pros weight distribution or center of gravity when they hit on mats with pressure plates, and have always wondered how the various points in the golf swing relate to those center of gravity movements in the graph. Can you provide any insight on that? Hold on. I've seen the images of pros weight distribution or center of gravity. I think you might be saying center of pressure. They're not really showing center of gravity. That's the center of pressure is typically what it's showing. And they hit on mats with pressure plates and have always wondered how the various points in the golf swing relate to those movements in the graph. Can you provide any insight to that? Can you give me some like a specific question about it? I'll be happy to answer anything, but I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for there. So Reg N says the shallowing fix uses a chop or axe feel that doesn't seem to work very well for me. Can you suggest other feels to accomplish the same goal? Well, basically, what's happening there is, we're trying to get the club shallowing out, right? So what I would recommend doing is, look at, go to the website and search slice or shallow, and there will be tons and tons of videos on it. So if you're looking for some different feels and some different drills to do, there's lots and lots of on the website. So anything that's slice or anything that's shallowing or shallow or whatever, you just search on the website and you will find tons and tons of drills. So upper right hand corner of the website, there's a little search box there. You can search those terms: slice, shallow, shallowing. You'll find lots of drills. I would just click there and you can find lots and lots of videos there. So BJ says, Q, I completed the shallowing course. My iron stock shot now with a strong grip and inside out swing produces a draw, which ends up 30 yards more off center. When I take a draw stance, left foot slightly in front of the right foot angle, I can draw the ball so it ends up in the center of the fairway. Would you recommend just using the draw stance as my stock stance shot? Yeah, you certainly can. I mean, I generally recommend a draw as kind of a stock shot for most players because it's just a more powerful shot. Um, you know, we always hear about tour players like Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka. You know, these guys are hitting fades. Well, they have tons and tons of power, right? A lot more power, a lot more club head speed than your average golfer. So, they can hit those fades and still get all the distance and everything that they need, more than enough, right? Whereas your average golfer needs all the distance that they can get. So I recommend a draw because it's just a more powerful shot. Why is it a more powerful shot? Well, it's a more powerful shot because you're closing the face to the path, right? And when you close the face, it also de-lofts the face. And that transfers more energy to the golf ball and makes it go lower and farther. So for most golfers, a draw is going to be a good stock pattern. You want to be able to do both, though. You don't just want to lock yourself into this draw box. So what ends up happening is that draw eventually turns into a hook, and now you have a new problem, right? So you really want to be able to do it both ways. It doesn't mean that you're ever going, like if you, let's say you're hitting fades in your practice and trying to hit it dead straight, trying to hit fades and trying to hit draws in your practice. That doesn't mean that you ever need to hit a straight or a fade shot on the course. It just means that if you're practicing those, then you're never ever going to get too far away from zero. If you're never practicing shots that are straight or the opposite direction, then what can happen is you can move too far in the opposite direction, and now you have a new problem, right? So I recommend practicing all of them. Have a stock shot that you're more comfortable with. A draw is generally going to be a better stock shot for most players. If you have a lot of club head speed, it opens things up for you. You might be more comfortable with a fade. If that's more comfortable for you, it'll be just fine for you to use. But draw is a more powerful shot. Even for myself, like I'm not like I don't have as much speed as like a Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka, but I have enough speed to where if I wanted to, I could hit a fade. But I still prefer a draw because it's just a more powerful shot. I like the way that it feels. I like the ball flight. To me, I like it a little bit more. I can still hit fades when I need to, but I generally just stick to the draws for the most part on the course. All right, so let's keep going. So Rick M says, IQ, a descending blow into the ball is how the iron strike is described. Should I feel that I am trapping or squashing the ball into the ground? The turf interaction is sometimes confusing to me. You can certainly feel that, but that's not the reality of what's happening, right? You're not literally, pushing the ball into the ground, right? You would in order to actually hit the ball into the ground, you would have to have negative loft on the club. So while that is a good feeling to have, that can certainly be a great feeling to have because that feeling can help you to get that descending blow into the golf ball that we want to have, right? And the reason why we need to have a descending blow into the golf ball is because when we're hitting iron shots, right, those shots are from off the ground, right? So if it's on the ground, we can't really hit up into the ball because the ground's in the way. We need to have a descending blow into the golf ball if we want to make ball first contact and be consistent, right? To be able to hit solid golf shots. So that feeling of trapping, some people call it pinching the ball into the turf, squashing the ball into the turf. That's a good feeling to help you to be able to get that descending blow into the golf ball. But that's not literally what's happening. What's happening is is you're hitting down on the ball, but as soon as you hit the ball, because there's loft on this face, this ball goes up. It doesn't go into the ground and bounce off the ground. It hits the club face and then it goes up, right? Because of the loft. So yeah, good feeling to have for most players, I think, especially if you're a player that struggles with getting that descending blow into the ball. But it's not literally what's happening. Excuse me. All right, so Dan S says, isn't 30 yards a bit much for a standard draw? Shouldn't he try to tone it down a bit more, like in the last part of the shallowing fix? He certainly could. 30 yards is quite a bit. I wouldn't want to be curving it quite that much. Sorry, I may have overlooked that or misread that earlier. But yeah, if you're getting 30 yards on your draws, I mean, that's really a hook for the most part. So yeah, ideally we wouldn't be drawing the ball really any more than 10 yards. 10 yards is even quite a bit. So I don't really recommend hitting big rope hooks out on the course. It's just going to be hard to control, especially in the wind. Because what's happening is what makes the ball curve that much is the spin axis. If you think about it as like the wings of a plane, that spin axis is tilting and then it's curving too much, right? So if we start getting that spin axis tilting and then there's some wind, well, that's just going to make it tilt even more, right? So you can do that up against the wind, right? But if you do it with the wind, that hook is just, or that draw, or that 30-yard overdraw, right? It's turning into a big snap hook. It can very quickly. Yeah, so we don't want to have a big amount of curvature on the golf ball. Ideally, yeah, you would tone that down to get a little bit more control of it. And that would be working through, what you said, the last drill, drill number 3 of the 20-minute shallowing fix for sure. So John M says, to clarify on my previous question, the center of pressure chart shows weight being even, shifting back, then it shifts forward quickly. When in the swing is that forward weight shift happening? It's happening in the last part of the backswing. So basically here, this is as far to my trail side as I'm going to be. And then as I'm going up to the top, I'm actually going to start moving forward, and then I'm going to continue to move forward, right? So it's really in that last part of the backswing is when that shift is moving forward. All right, so keep the questions coming. All right, so Rick M says, hi Q, when hitting longer irons, 2-iron, 3-iron, is a more upright stance recommended? What about stance with long irons? What about stance with long irons? Really, a stance width is going to be about the same, right? So generally what I like is, these are just generalities too. It doesn't mean you may not benefit from having a narrower or wider stance, but generally what I like to see for basically any iron, whether you're talking about a 9-iron or a 2-iron, what I like to see is basically like to see the center of the ankles about shoulder width. So if you were to draw a line straight down from my ankles, or straight down from my shoulders, that'd be going like in the middle of my ankles there, right? So that's basically, about it. Now, some players may be more comfortable and may hit the ball better from here. It's really about, there's no stance width that's like a universal truth. We have to have this stance width, right? There's lots of different things that you can do. Now, generally with those longer irons, right, depending on what you're trying to hit. So for me, I've had a 2-iron and 3-iron in the bag before. When I'm hitting those clubs, I'm generally trying to keep it low and kind of hit like stinger type shots. So if I'm trying to hit like a stinger type shot, I'm typically going to get a little bit narrower with my stance, and I'm going to be kind of leaning forward. So that way I can get my body more forward and get my hands more forward to be able to get it really, really low, right? So, that's what I'm trying to do on those shots. So a lot of it depends on the kind of shot that you're trying to hit as far as how wide the stance is. But if you're just trying to hit your normal trajectory kind of shot, middle of the ankles, shoulder width apart is typically going to be a pretty good stance width. As far as more upright, I mean, generally speaking, the longer the club is, the more upright you're going to be, right? So you're going to be a little bit more upright with a 2-iron because the club is longer versus a wedge, right? So this is this is like a middle wedge, right? And here's a driver, right? So this club is almost the entire grip length longer, right? So for this wedge, right, my arms are going to be kind of hanging straight down, right? So I'm going to have a little bit of hinge at my waist here, right? I'm going to have my hips kind of on top of my ankles, a little bit of hinge to let my arms kind of hang straight down. And that's where I'm going to be with the wedge. Now with a driver, I'm not going to be here, right? I'm going to be standing up a little bit taller because the club is longer, right? So I'm going to be more right here, with a driver. Whereas with a wedge, I might be down here. Now with a 2-iron, right, I'm going to be somewhere in between there. I'm going to be closer to where I am with the driver, but I'm not going to be all the way down here where I am with my wedge. But yeah, it will be a little bit more upright versus like a wedge, right? So Jeff M says, when I try to shallow the club, I feel the club dropping behind my back, which is a very different feel than I have had in the past. Am I on the right track with this different feel? Most likely, yeah, because that's what shallowing out the club is. Shallowing out the club would be the club kind of flattening out and going more behind you. So odds are, I would say, yeah, it probably is. But feels are relative, right? What you feel, what I feel, and what you feel and what's actually happening can be two different things. So, I would just look on video, use feedback mechanisms to see if your feel is real. Look on video, use an obstacle, to force you to shallow out the club, to swing from the inside. You can do the wall drill where you go up to the top of the swing, and then you feel the club kind of going down the wall as you're coming down. Again, when the club's going down the wall, I'm extremely shallowing it out. Where's the club going? It's going kind of behind my back. So odds are, I would say, yeah, you're probably on the right track, but you just got to look on video, to know for sure. So John M says, I use a GC quad for my indoor practice, and I'm doing the shallowing fix. I'm curious what kind of numbers should I be looking for club path, face angle, at impact, and launch angle for an 8-iron. I wouldn't be worried about your launch angle. I'd be just worried about the club path and the face angle. So club path, you're going to be looking for a positive club path. Anything that is in to out that would be representative of a shallow swing is going to be positive, right? So you're looking for a positive club path, and you're looking for a face to path that would be closed, right? That's going to get the ball to turn from right to left. So you'd be looking for a negative face to path. Now, as far as face angle is concerned, the face is going to be open to your target but closed to your path, right? So that's going to make the ball start to the right of your target and then curve back toward your target. So, positive club path, that'd be in to out. You'd want a negative face to path, which is going to mean that your face is going to be closed to your path, and that's going to get the ball to curve from right to left. If you're looking at just face angle, then you want a positive face angle, but you want it closed to your path. So let's say your club path is 6 degrees, right? 6 degrees positive, so that's 6 degrees in to out. You'd want your face angle to be 3 degrees positive, because that means that it's going to be 3 degrees open to your target, but then 3 degrees close to your path. That's going to give you a ball flight that's going to start to the right of your target and curve back toward your target. If let's say that your path was 6 degrees, and your face angle was also 6 degrees. Well, what would happen is it would just be a push out to the right. It'd just be a big block, right? Let's say that your path was 6 degrees and your face angle was 0 degrees. Well, that would mean that your face is square to the target, but it's too close to your path, right? So the ball's going to start at the target, and then it's going to curve way left of the target, right? And it's going to have a big amount of curve. So that would be the numbers I'd be looking for. If you're working on like the shallowing the club, I really wouldn't worry about the launch. That's not what you're working on when you're shallowing out the club. The launch angle is not an important aspect of it. It's really the face and the path is the important aspect of it. A little bit of ground contact, and it's not a parameter that GC Quad is going to be giving you, like where you're hitting the ground in relation to the golf ball. But that's definitely something that you want to keep an eye on as well. Because typically when you shallow out the club, the more you shallow out, the more it's going to push the bottom of your swing away from the target. So a lot of times people who are coming down steep will hang back on their back foot. Well, now if you shallow out the club and still hang back on your back foot, that's a problem. You're going to start hitting behind the golf ball, right? So yeah, face, angle, and path. If you want to learn more about that, what I'd recommend is checking out, there's a free training. If you do a Google search of TrackMan University, just do a Google search, TrackMan University. Now, they don't use all the exact same terms, but they're all going to be pretty much the same for the most part. And it's a free training that teaches you about all of the parameters, all of the data that the GC Quad is giving you. And to be honest, you really don't need to, look at the numbers, right? What I would be focusing on is, what is my ball flight doing? So if you have it hooked up and it's showing you the simulated ball flight, I'd be just looking for the ball to start to the right and curve back toward the target, assuming you're right-handed. Start to the right, curve back toward the target. If you're doing that, then your face and your path are going to be in good order. All right, so let's keep going. So Chris N says, what is the best way to take the club away with the hands, arms, or with the core muscles? I mean, you're really using both. You're using, because you're not just doing this, right? You're bringing your whole body's kind of bringing the club back. So I'm using my core to bring the club back. I'm not just doing this, hands and arms, because if I don't use my core and turn my body, right, then my right arm's going to fold, right? So I want to feel everything kind of bringing that club back. I want to feel my core bring it back in my hands and my arms. But there isn't no one best way to bring back the club. It's really about whatever way brings back the club that gets you in a good position at the top, that allows you to bring the club into impact the correct way. So if you look on tour, you're going to see all kinds of different takeaways, right? There's not one takeaway that's best. You're going to see all kinds of things. You can play at an elite level with all kinds of takeaways, right? If you think about Matt Wolff, right? Matt Wolff brings the club way up here and then shallows out. If you look at Sam Snead, he brought the club way inside and then brought it up and brought it down. If you look at Tiger, he brings it up kind of right up the hands and then up, right? So you're going to see a lot of different ways to bring the club back. There's no one right way. But if you're asking me, are you using your hands and your arms or the core muscles, you're really using both. No matter how you're bringing the club back, you don't typically want to just do that, right? You want to get them both going back together. So let's keep going. So Jeff M says, when I shallow the club, I tend to hit behind the ball. Does shallowing generally require a ball position more toward the back foot? No, it shouldn't. So ball position wise, for any shot off the turf, generally we want it a little bit forward to the middle of the stance. So if we have some good spine angle here, and an easy way to find your good spine angle would be to take the club, put it down the center of your torso here. So basically from your shirt buttons down to your belt buckle, right? Get in your stance and then tilt until that club just touches your inside of your leg there. And then from there, that's my good spine angle position. And then I can take this club and I can hang it straight down from my earlobe and drop it down. That's going to be a good ball position for any shot off the turf. That really just puts it just forward of the middle of my stance. Now, the reason why shallowing out the club can make you hit more behind the golf ball is because it moves the low point of your swing away from the target. This is a big reason why a lot of people struggle with shallowing out the club, because if all things equal, they shallowed out the club, a lot of times they would end up hitting behind the golf ball. So imagine this. Imagine if I swung 45 degrees into out, right? So if I'm standing at home plate at a baseball field, right, I'm standing in the batter's box. If I swung this club up the right field line, where's my club going to bottom out at? It's going to bottom out right here in front of my trail foot. So that'd be really shallowing out the club, right? 45 degrees into out. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine I swung the club up the third base line, up the left field line, right? Or now where's my club going to bottom out? It's going to bottom out in front. So a lot of times when players are coming over the top, what they'll do is they'll hang back on their back foot, because if they also shifted their body forward, what would happen is they would just hit the ground way too far in front of the ball. So they'll come over the top and hang back on their back foot to accommodate that, right? So then if we go to shallow it and then we stay on our back foot, then we're hitting way behind the golf ball. So we need to make sure that we're just getting a good weight shift to the lead side to make sure that we're also able to make ball first contact when we shallow it out. So just make sure that you're shifting to your lead side. I'd also just make sure that your ball position isn't too far forward, right? Your ball position is possible. It could be too far forward. So if you follow those guidelines, getting your good tilt straight down from the lead ear, and then you get a good shift to your lead side when you're shallowing out the club, you should be able to make ball first contact. And also shallow out the club. All right, so let's keep going. So Rick M says, Q, the moment I started focusing on the straight line release, i.e. collecting the ball on the way to an endpoint a few feet in front of the ball, my iron distances increased significantly. Just wanted to share with that group today. I encourage all members to review this concept. Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So what I would say to that is we just have to make sure that we're doing all the other pieces. So odds are you probably have good spine angles. You probably have good power turn. You got a good you're getting some lag. You're getting a good compression line, right? Because they're all prerequisites to each other. So what I don't recommend doing is just saying skip everything, go the straight line release, and then you'll gain yardage. That's not really how it works. They're all a prerequisite to each one. If you look at Rick's swing, I would imagine he's probably doing most of the other pieces of the system pretty well, and it's led to him being able to do the release in a better way and get those extra distances with his iron. So awesome to hear, Rick. But yeah, we got to work through the system and get to the point to where Rick's at. All right, so keep the questions coming. Sorry for the buzzing noise. My fridge likes to make buzzing sounds. All right. So we got another question here. John M says, curious, what are you working on in your game currently? Right now, I'm just working on being in better balance with my driver. My balances were just getting off a little bit. My driver was just kind of getting off a little bit. So that's really, I'm not really working on much. I don't play or practice very much anymore because I just don't. So, but yeah, if I'm working on anything, it's just my driver has been the worst part of my game for the last probably this year. So just working on getting the face in a better position. So that way I can stay in my balance points a little bit more easily and keep the face square better. But yeah, other than that, not really much. I do get out and hit balls every now and then, but yeah, not really working on much of anything. So Dan S says, buzzing from the fridge, not very noticeable on my end. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Yeah, I thought it was before because I was reviewing some of the video and I could hear it in the background, but yeah, glad it's not too noticeable. And the microphone here is only a few feet away from it, so. All right, so we got about 25 minutes or so left here. Keep the questions coming. If you guys are out of questions, then I may take off and get some other things done. So yeah, as long as we're asking questions, I'll stay on here. So Reg N says, my long fairway club is a 3 hybrid. When I hit it solid, I can get about 185 yards. Should I be using a 3-wood? What would the criteria be to use a 3-wood? I mean, a 3 hybrid is probably going to have a little bit more loft on it than a 3 wood. It's possible you could hit your a 3 wood a little bit farther. Um, but yeah, I mean, you just hit a 3 wood the same way. But yeah, three hybrids typically going to have like what a 3 iron would have on it. So it's going to have. I think I have a 3 high. I can't remember if it's a 3 or 4 hybrid. But I believe I have a 3 hybrid, and it's like 19 degrees. A 3 wood is going to be anywhere between, typically 14 degrees and at most 17 degrees. So it's gonna have a little less loft on it. So it it'll typically go lower and will go a little bit farther. So odds are I would guess you'd probably be able to hit a 3 wood, in the 190 to 200 range. So if you're looking for a club that can do that, then it might be a little bit better for you. And also a 3 wood's typically going to be a little bit longer than a hybrid as well, than a 3 hybrid. I don't have my clubs in here, so I can't like show you the difference, but yeah, typically a 3 wood's going to be, a couple inches shorter than your driver. 3 hybrid's going to be pretty close to the same length as like a long iron, like a 3 iron would be. So, yeah, you more than likely you would hit like a 3 wood probably close to 200, assuming you put a good swing on it and made good contact. But I will say, a 3 wood is harder to hit than a 3 hybrid, right? Because it's longer, right? So has a little less loft on it. I would say, since you're hitting your hybrid 185, you probably at the club head speed level where I would recommend kind of a higher launching 3 wood. Odds are you're probably going to hit a higher launching 3 wood farther than like a standard 3 wood. So I'd recommend one that's that maybe got a little bit more like 16 degrees of loft, because you're probably going to hit that a little bit better. So Jeff M says, I find that early extension is a difficult thing to fix. Do you have a favorite drill to address the problem? Appreciate all your advice. Very helpful. So it really just depends on why you are early extending, right? So usually people are early extending not because they don't want to. Most people are early extending because it's necessary in order to hit a functional shot, right? So there's 2 things that early extending does. One is it can help shallow out the club, right? So if I'm coming down steep and then I early extend, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar with what early extension is where this angle between my legs and my body, where this angle gets bigger too early in the swing. So in the start of the downswing, what we want to do is we actually want to flex the hips, right? We want that angle to get smaller, and then we extend through the ball. But if we start our downswing by extending the hips, right, then what that can do is that can shallow out the club. So if I have the club in a steep position, or if I'm just using early extension as the mechanism to shallow out my club, then that can help me to hit functional shots. Because if the club was steep, right, or I didn't use something else to shallow out the club, like my upper body, then what would happen is if I stay in my posture and I rotate, look at the club's just going to come down even more steeply, right? So you're not going to hit a functional shot if you do that. The other thing that it does is it pulls your body, your upper body, away from the golf ball, allows you to extend your arms and release the club, and that can help to square up the face. If the face is very open, then what a lot of players will do is they'll early extend to square up the face. And the reason why a lot of people do that is because that feels very powerful, right? If I can move my chest away and then throw my arms away from my body, that feels very powerful to a lot of people, right? The problem with that is that I'm now going to early release the club. I'm going to add loft to the club face, right? I'm not going to compress the ball as much. I'm going to tend to have this club bottom out a little bit too early. I'm going to tend to hit thin shots, chunks, sometimes top shots, that sort of thing. I'm also going to tend to have poor face control because my club face is going to be going from open to close very, very quickly. So I'm going to tend to have a harder time controlling my ball flight, right? So, it's not something that we generally see the best players doing because it just makes things harder to control, right? So you have to look at what of those things are you doing that's making you early extend. You have to have no incentive to early extend to not do it, right? If you're giving yourself an incentive to early extend, if you're meaning if you're doing it as a way to help you hit a functional shot, right, then it's going to be very, very difficult to change. So you have to take away that incentive by getting the club shot out, getting the face more closed. So that way you are incentivized to actually stay in your posture you know, to stay in your posture, to control the face and be able to shadow out the club. So if you want, my favorite drill would probably just be the 20-minute shadowing fix. The 20-minute shadowing fix covers both of those things. It gets the face more closed and it gets the club shallowing out. If we can get those things happening, then it'll be a lot easier to fix the early extension because you will no longer have the incentive to early extend. Right. So take away the incentive, work through the 20-minute shallowing fix, and that will be kind of the first step to getting rid of that early extension. So to get to that course, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute shallowing fix. So Golf Enthusiast says, what does working into the ground mean? And how does that accelerate the club head speed? Working into the ground. Can you give me some context? Like I don't know what that means just by itself. It could mean a lot of things. So yeah, give me some context. Use it in a sentence. Yeah, I don't know what it means. So yeah, I can more easily help answer your question if that's the case. So John M says, I hear commentators on the tour broadcast talk about pitches with very relaxed arms. Are the arms pretty inactive or shorter pitches? For example, shift left and just let the arms drop, or is there a pretty active right arm release? It really just depends on what kind of shot that you're hitting. And the other thing to think about is whether the arms, these are always very, very tough questions because what you're doing and what you feel are going to be two completely different things. So what I will say is if you're looking on video and you want something to change, then you're going to need to actively think to change that. It's not just going to happen on its own. You have to do something different in order to change it. Like if you're doing what comes natural to you, right? What feels like just dropping the hands down and you're not doing what you want to do, then you're going to need to change what you're doing, right? So generally speaking, we are turning our body back and through, and we don't want to be all arms and wrists, right? We don't want to hit pitches like this, right? We want to get the body kind of involved, right? And we don't want too much tension in the arms and too much muscle because it can take away the feel of the shot. But what you're feeling and what's actually happening are just two completely different things. And I don't know what you're feeling, so I can't tell you for a fact if I know that feeling inactive is going to help you to work better. So a lot of what golf is just going out and learn by doing, right? Go out to the range, feel like you're inactive, see what kind of results that you get. Look at a video, see if it looks the way that it needs to look, right? Because that's the only way you're really going to be able to figure it out. When you're hearing commentators, you may be hearing what they're feeling in their swing, or you may be feeling what a tour player, or you may be hearing what a tour player told them that they are feeling. Right? It's not necessarily the reality of what's going on. It's very possible. I would say more often than not, I see players that are too active with their arms. So feeling inactive with their arm may be a good thing to be, but there are definitely players that aren't active enough with their arms and actually need to feel like they're more active. So that's really what golf is. It's adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. Everyone's feel is different. It's very relative to you. So yeah, there's no way to really know. So what I recommend doing is learn by doing, video yourself, see what you feel is actually real, adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want, play around with different feels, and take note of the things that actually lead to good results for you. And then just keep doing those things and keep digging away at those things. That's really how you figure it out, right? So that's what I would recommend doing. John M says, okay, that's very helpful. Thanks for the explanation. No problem, John. Glad to help. right, so golf enthusiast says, I've been told to push into the ground to create speed. Didn't understand if either. Didn't understand if either. So yeah, you have to push into the ground to create speed. If you don't, imagine like if you were suspended in the air, like how much speed you would be able to generate. Like if you just had like a harness attached to your hips, and then a cable that just lifted up in the air, and you had to swing the club, and there was like a ball in the air, and you had to swing and try to create speed. You probably imagine it'd be difficult to create a lot of speed because you're not pushing into the ground to create speed, right? So that's we have to use the ground as leverage to be able to turn our body back and through with any kind of speed. So yeah, the sumo step is a great drill to help you to work on that. That's in our 20-minute distance fix. So if you want to check out that sumo step drill, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute distance fix. And Clay talks about pushing into the ground in that video. It may help you to understand a little bit more with demonstrations and stuff. But it's in week 1. So if you go to week 1, it's drill number 2 from the week 1. It's the sumo step. Go check it out. But yeah, we got to push into the ground to create speed. If we don't, we have nothing to leverage against to be able to turn our body. We're turning against nothing, and that we're just not able to create any speed, and we're not able to rotate our body very well if we're not pushing up against something, right? Imagine another good way to think about it is imagine like a hardwood, like a slippery hardwood floor, and you have socks on, or if you're on ice, and that's probably a better analogy. Imagine you're on ice, right, and you're just wearing like tennis shoes out on ice, like really slippery ice. Imagine trying to hit a golf ball from there. Right? A lot of times, if you've seen videos, you want a good laugh. There's videos online of people trying to hit golf balls off of ice, and they fall on their face because they're trying to push into the ground, but they can't because their foot slips. They don't have any friction. There's no leverage there to be created, and they can't swing with a lot of speed. Even if they do stay on their feet, they have to swing really, really slow because they can't lever their body against anything. So yeah, we definitely need to push into the ground to create speed for sure. All right, so Dan S says, recently saw a video Clay did with wedges to keep a low launch. He was keeping feet together and playing the ball off his right foot by one club head. This worked well for me, so I have been trying it more with irons. Also, keeping feet together more and play the ball back seems to be working better for aim, but I am maybe losing some distance since you just said shoulder width for irons. Do you have any thoughts on this? Yeah, so if we're hitting a wedge shot, we don't need a full power, right? We don't need a ton of power. It's all about control, right, with that shot. So feet close together keeps you more centered. And if I don't need to make a powerful swing, that's how we would hit. If we only needed to hit the ball 30 yards, there'd be no need to take a wide stance because I don't need the power. I'd keep my feet close together and more centered, and all I need is this much. Like this is probably like a 52-degree wedge to hit a ball 30 yards. That's about all I need, right? I don't need a wide stance to be able to do that. If I'm trying to hit a ball 180 yards, right, it would be very difficult to do from this position. I might be able to do it with a 4-iron maybe, but it'd be hard to create much power. I need to get a wider stance so that way I can shift and turn. I can use the ground, shift into my trail side, turn my body, shift into my lead side, and turn my body powerfully to be able to create club head speed to be able to hit the ball farther. So yeah, we don't really want to hit all of our shots that way unless you're just crazy strong and can create a ton of speed from a very narrow stance. I suppose it'd be fine in that way, but even in that situation, you could hit the ball farther if you just took a wider stance and shifted and got a good shift, of pressure from one foot to the other. That's going to help you to rotate faster and be able to create more speed. So yeah, the pitching game is definitely a lot different than the full swing speed kind of game. All right, so we got not quite 10 minutes left. we got any more questions. So Michael A says, in one of Clay's videos on driving, he recommends straightening your trail leg to increase rotation in the backswing. This tip has worked wonders for my driving, but not so much with my irons. Any thought? Hard to say without seeing your swing, but I would just kind of compare the two and see what's going on there. With the driver, we can be more centered. Whereas with the iron, we need to kind of get our body shifting forward. So it could be possible that straightening out your leg is kind of making you hang back. If you gave me some idea of what the issues are with the irons, I may be able to help. But yeah, my best advice is you just kind of look on video, see what's going on there, see what the difference is, and then go from there. But I don't know anything directly. Nothing comes to mind that would, that's going on. Maybe you're lengthening your swing too much with your irons, and that's making it more difficult. Hard to say, without seeing what's going on. So Jeff M says, I can swing a lighter club or an alignment stick much faster than a normal driver. Why have the golf club designers not developed a super light club? They have. There's definitely really, really light clubs out there. I think the brand is Zexio, I think it's called. It's a Japanese brand. They make insanely light clubs. Obviously there's more to a golf club than there is an alignment stick. So it'd be tough to make it the same, weight as an alignment stick. But they definitely have shafts that are very light. We're talking like 30-gram shafts and club heads that are very light. So yeah, they definitely exist, like really, really light golf clubs. I know Zexio makes some. So if you have trouble creating club head speed, the really light golf clubs can definitely help. The problem with the really light golf clubs is they can be, if you have a lot of club head speed, you may be thinking, well, I mean, if I have a lot of club head speed, I might be able to get even more if I use a really light club. The problem is that it'd be harder to control, right? So if I take this club and I turn it around, it's a lot harder to control the tip of this. Whereas if I turn it this way, it's a lot easier because there's more weight, right? I can feel the club head a lot more. So if it's too light, then it gets a little bit harder to feel. And it's also it's typically a more flexy if it's lighter. So yeah, there's definitely really light club heads and shafts out there. Not as light as an alignment stick, but definitely much lighter than general. So yeah, it's just about getting fit for it. Finding what's fit for you. But you may find that if the club is too light, it may be hard to control because you can't feel it as much, right? Imagine if you put a club head at the end of that alignment stick, it's so light, it'd be hard to feel where the club head is. So we want to be able to swing fast. We also want to be able to hit the ball in the center of the face and control the club face and all that stuff. So you have to find that happy medium of weight that allows you to do those things, and speed to be able to hit the ball as far as possible. So yeah, there's definitely light clubs out there. They're expensive. I haven't Zexio. I think that's how you pronounce it, Zexio, and it's XXIO is what it looks like. Or how it's spelled, but they're pretty expensive from what I've heard. I don't know the pricing, but they're more expensive than your typical like Ping or TaylorMade or whatever driver. All right, a couple minutes left. Got time for maybe one more. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.